You ever look at a calendar and feel like some dates just have a strange gravity to them? Like they pull together people and events that have absolutely nothing in common. Well, today we're going deep on one of those dates. A single 24-hour window that holds this really wild connection to some of the biggest triumphs and, honestly, some of the deepest tragedies in the whole history of mathematics.
So take a look at these names. We've got a modern giant in computer science, a brilliant Ukrainian academic from the Soviet era, a pioneering Canadian woman in mathematics, and a dazzling French mathematician from the 19th century. I mean, they're from completely different worlds, different times, so what in the world could possibly connect all of them?
It all comes down to this one day, March 9th. Yep, that's the date that links every single one of them. It's either the day they were born or the day they died. It's a date that is just surprisingly packed with mathematical destiny. Okay, so is there some kind of cosmic magic at play here? Probably not. But what's really cool is how this one totally random date gives us this perfect snapshot of the human story of math. And it's a story of incredible genius, quiet sacrifice, unimaginable tragedy, and unsung dedication. All the drama that's usually hidden behind all those clean numbers and theorems. So let's kick things off on the bright side of the calendar, right? For some truly remarkable people, March 9th was the very beginning of an incredible journey.
And you know, we don't even have to dust off any old history books for our first example. We can start with a living legend, someone whose work is a massive pillar of the digital world that we're all living in right now. Meet László Lovász, born March 9th, 1948. Seriously, if you want a picture of what a prodigy looks like, this is it. We're talking three gold medals at the International Mathematical Olympiad before he was even out of his teens. He co-created the LL algorithm, which is this powerhouse tool used for everything from breaking codes to optimizing networks. He won the LL Prize, that's basically the Nobel for math, and became the youngest person ever elected to the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. Just an absolutely incredible career that all started on this one specific date.
But hey, Lovász isn't the only one. March 9th also gave us some of the key architects of modern math back in the 19th century. Over in Belgium, you had Constantin Lepage, who was charting brand new territory studying algebraic curves, and at the same time, over in Germany, Olaus Henrici was born. He'd later move to London and just completely reshape the British curriculum, bringing in cutting-edge stuff like projective geometry. So you've got two different countries, two innovators, building the future of their field, and they share the same birthday.
But of course, for every beginning, there's an end. And for a surprising number of mathematicians, March 9th is a day of immense loss. A day a brilliant mind was just gone, often way, way too soon.
Just look at this number for a second. 33. That's how old the French mathematician Edmond Bour was when he died. It's a number that it aches with lost potential, doesn't it? And Bour was an absolute shooting star. He graduated first in his class from the legendary École Polytechnique in Paris. He won the top math prize from the Academy of Sciences for his work on how surfaces bend and warp. The guy was making major breakthroughs in 4 different fields of math. And then on March 9th, 1866, he was gone, taken by an incurable disease. Just wow. Imagine what else he could have done. So Bour's story is a tragedy of biology. But for others, the end of a career wasn't about disease at all, but about the rigid rules of society itself. And that brings us to Agnes Baxter. Agnes Baxter was a total trailblazer. Back in 1895, she became only the second woman in all of Canada to get a PhD in math, a brilliant mind with a promising research career right there in front of her. But in that era, she faced a choice that men almost never had to make. She gave it all up to support her husband's work. She tragically died on March 9th, 1917, at just 46. Her husband later funded a library in her name, and he wrote that she gave her life to assist in my educational work instead of making an independent record for herself. Her potential wasn't lost exactly, it was diverted. And from that story of sacrifice, we turn to our most chilling example. This is a story where a career wasn't ended by illness or by societal pressure. It was deliberately and brutally crushed by political terror. This timeline, it just shows the terrifyingly fast destruction of a great mind. Mikhail Kravchuk was a celebrated Ukrainian mathematician, a full member of their Academy of Sciences. But during Stalin's Great Terror, his brilliance made him a target. The accusations were just absurd. A Polish spy, a bourgeois nationalist. In 1938, he was arrested, sentenced. And in 1942, He died in the frozen hell of the Kolyma Gulag on March 9th. These are his own words from a desperate letter he managed to smuggle out. Complete deprivation of sleep for 11 days. Measures of direct physical impact. That's the human cost of persecuting a scientist. The irony? Today, his work on what we now call Kravchuk polynomials is fundamental to modern coding theory. But the man himself? He was erased from history for decades. So we've seen careers launched and careers destroyed. But what about the ones that reach their natural end on March 9th? Well, their stories show us there are many, many different ways to forge a lasting legacy in mathematics. Let's talk about Chazy. He died on March 9th, 1955, after a full and pretty amazing life. Here was a mind that could operate in the most abstract realms you can imagine. He was tackling the famously impossible three-body problem, predicting planetary motion, and he was one of the first scholars to really dive into Einstein's new theory of relativity. But then, during World War I, he pointed that incredible intellect at something brutally practical, calculating the precise location of Big Bertha, the German supergun that was shelling Paris. It's just this brilliant example of how one mind can bridge that huge gap between pure theory and life-or-death application. But a legacy isn't always measured in published papers or wartime heroics. Sometimes the biggest impact is felt right there in the classroom. And this brings us to the very strange and, frankly, kind of wonderful case of Robert Haldane. Okay, this is one of my favorite stories. The contrast here is just wild. In 1809, Robert Haldane, a clergyman, gets appointed professor of mathematics at St. Andrews. Not because of his amazing research, he had zero, but because of church politics. It was a total scandal. And yet, the reality was astonishing. He became one of the most successful, most beloved, and most effective math teachers of his entire generation. He never published a single mathematical paper, but his legacy was the generations of students he inspired. He passed away on March 9th, 1854. All right, so we've seen brilliant beginnings, tragic ends, and legacies forged in completely different ways, all somehow tied to this one day on the calendar. So what does it all really tell us? Let's try to pull it all together. What's the big takeaway from looking at all these lives connected by March 9th? Okay, I think the crucial point is this. Math isn't some cold, abstract thing floating outside of our experience. It is profoundly human. It's filled with stories of triumph, like Lavage's, and deep tragedy, like Kravchuk's. It shows us that a legacy can be a world-changing algorithm, an inspiring lecture, or even a career sacrificed, like Agnes Baxter's. And maybe most of all, it's a reminder that brilliance has always been fragile, vulnerable not just to illness, but to the politics and prejudices of the time. Look, in the end, there's nothing magical about March 9th. It's a coincidence, but it's a really powerful one. It's like a lens that lets us see a deeper truth, that behind every single theorem, every equation, every academic title, there was a human story. Every single day on the calendar is packed with these tales of discovery, struggle, and impact. And that really leaves us with one last thought. We've just pulled back the curtain on one single day. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredible human stories are out there, just waiting for us, hidden in plain sight